Hey, all, been getting a lot of questions. How much frost resist do we need for Sapphiron? That's why I am in my winter gear, and that's what you're going to have to do if you want to take Sapphiron down as early as possible in the progression phase. I remember back in 2019, it took like 6 weeks for my guild to do it. I would love to do it week 1, and I think for a decent amount of guilds, a week 1 is possible, but you're going to need some frost resist gear. We're going to talk about how much do you need? What's the sweet spot? Because too much might be overkill, but not enough. You're going to be taking way too much damage. So we're going to go over all that and where to get it for different classes. How much do different classes need? You know, healers typically don't wear that much. So we're going to go over everything that you need to know about frost resist for the best in slot setup, but also for your week 1, week 2 kills. Okay, let's get into it. So let's just discuss where is the frost damage coming from. There's 3 sources. One is blizzards. They're gonna kind of give you a second or two to react, although you might have one spawn where you're in the middle of the blizzard. Recommendation here, eagle eye, looking down at your character. That way you're gonna see, do you move forward, do you move backwards? I'm going to make a separate video where we really break down how to kill Sapphiron, all the mechanics. So anyways, usually as melee, you want to move forward and back, not side to side. Otherwise, you got the cleave and the tail, so you got to go forwards and backwards. And the other source of damage is when Sapphiron goes in the air. There's going to be 5 frost bolts on people and have splash damage. As far as I've seen, the blizzard and the frost bolt, the frost resistance doesn't really have a big effect there. But where it does have a big effect is on the 600 damage every 2 seconds. That can be resisted. So it'll either be 450, 300, or 150 damage taken, and very rarely, if you have a lot of resist, 0 damage taken. This chart's pretty accurate, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some logs here of the frost resist numbers. How much frost resist are people wearing and the amount of damage they're taking. So I think a really important one to keep in mind is how much damage are you going to lose as you get more frost resist. 300 frost resist, 75% damage done on average for different classes. That's not okay. This boss will not die. But if we are at 100 frost resist unbuffed, just from the gear, that's a 25% reduction. That's not too bad. And how much damage reduction does it do? Well, chance to deal 75% less damage. Still, it's not that common. It's not going to happen that much, but reasonably common. You will either take 25 or 50% less damage. So at least most of the time you will take a level of mitigation. Whereas if you go from 100 to 120, the resist chance, it's not that much. You only get a real big jump when you go like to the 200 or 300 area, but that's such a huge jump for frost or for damage loss. Usually we're going to see people around the 100 to 120, maybe 150 unbuffed. Keep in mind, if you have a pally or a totem in your group, you're going to get another 60 frost resist. You can get 15 from the Juju Chill. If you don't have a totem or a aura from a paladin, you can get Mark of the Wild for 20. And so even if you have 100, 120, you know, you could bump it up to around 150 or even a bit more just from the bonuses, right? So getting close-ish to the 200 range might be possible if you have 120. So what we're looking at here is basically a CLA, combat log analysis, for a Nax where we killed Sapphiron in about 2 minutes. It was an hour and 20 minute Nax, you know, just a chill farm run. And people are wearing, well, we can see our holy paladins are basically wearing 0, although this one guy decided to wear some. Our priests basically wear none. And other than the fact that, like, these guys, they are wearing their tier 2. Tier 2 is a very strong priest set for Sapphiron, at least on Alliance, because greater heal is really nice. But anywho, they're wearing their Halo of Transcendence plus a resist on their cloak, and that's giving them that 15. Anyways, healers tend to not really wear any frost resist. We do have our Resto Druid and our Feral Tank wearing some frost resist while they're healing. Mages typically go crazy on frost resist because, honestly, as a mage, you're just there to decurse. So maximize your frost resist. Honestly, your damage is not going to be that great because you're going to build an ignite, and then the ignite's going to drop because you're decursing. And so it's, honestly, you're just decursing pretty much nonstop. Fireball a couple times, decurse. So it's a big decurse fight for mages. Don't be afraid to go high on the frost resist. We're going to compare Drizzy's damage to other people because he has 223 frost resist unbuffed. Again, we're going to compare damage done versus damage taken, and we'll look at a couple other folks here. So here's the damage taken. We had one person get hit by the frost breath. That was an instant kill. They took 106,000 damage from that. Here's the main tank, mostly taking melee damage, but a decent chunk of frost damage. And then we have down here, let's just first look at the one end of the spectrum. Megumax took 14,000 damage, and they absorbed most of it. And we're going to see that is because they were using Voidwalker Sacrifice. So they have like 300 resist or something almost. So when we're looking at the logs here, the A is the actual damage taken. U is the unmitigated. So they're taking that 600, 600, 600, 600. Mitigated is how much it's mitigated, right? And then the percentage mitigated. So, actually, sorry, the A is absorb. The A is absorb. Because they're having a frost potion. Absorbing it. So you can see 300, 450, 150, 150, 150. A lot of 300 and 150s, the occasional 450, and a very rare resist. A complete resist. Let's take a look at a different player here. I myself, as a healer, this is me. I wore 0 frost resist, and I had a frost aura, 60 aura. I'm taking some absorb. There's the final absorb there, and then I'm taking 450, 450, 300, 600, 450. Maybe there's a pre-shield on me there or something. I don't know. I am taking quite a few 600s, but I find, and then I bubbled here, I find as a healer, you need the mana, right? You cannot afford to use some crappy green stuff to heal with. You need healing gear with intellect, stamina, mana per 5, plus healing. Don't worry about the damage you take as a healer, because you can heal yourself and other people. But it's the DPS who need resistance. So let's just take a look at Drizzy. First, let's actually take a look at damage done here. So we have a couple warriors doing like 1600, 1400 DPS, a lot of damage with recklessness and such. Drizzy, he's a rogue. He's doing IEA. He did almost 800 DPS. Not much less than Ronok, who had almost no frost resist on. So, but Rogue and Warrior is a different story. Anyways, let's look at damage taken here for Drizzy. And he had around 220 frost resist, and so 150, 300, 300, 150, 300, 150, 300, couple 450s here. Not seeing hardly any 600s, so he is taking a great reduction in damage. But honestly, it's going to be very difficult on your first week to have all these epic pieces, right? In fact, it is pretty much impossible. We'll go over how to get that stuff shortly. I hope you enjoyed this more mathematical stuff first before we talk to you how to even get the gear in the first place. And I just want to take a look at a warrior here real quick. So Don Crabron, he didn't have a lot of resist on. He was being a bit greedy. And he's pretty much taking a lot of those full damages. And because he's in Zerker stance, keep in mind warriors, this is very important. And sometimes you can go battle stance, right? He's taking 660. Because he's in Zerker stance, taking 10% more damage. And let's see what happens when he pops Wreck. Now he's taking 792, right? So just keep in mind, warriors, you might consider on progression to be in battle stance because it's a lot of damage taken, man. A lot of damage taken. All right. But keep in mind, if this group of people here, no offense to them, if these people here can kill Sapphiron in 7 minutes and 36 seconds with a protection paladin as the main tank, with 14 healers, 3 of which are resto druids, with a Ret Pally, with a Rogue as number 1 damage. If they can do it, so can you on progression. You got to be carried by a reasonable meta comp and world buffs. And you can wear some of these green items. You're going to have to aim for that 100 to 150 frost resist. Let me show you roughly what I've come up with for a warrior. So every class you can wear your tier 2 helmet. It has frost resist. Now off the bat, it's going to be tough for you to get that 10 frost resist enchant because there's new materials that you farm off of like the dark iron, elementals and such, and they give you the currency. It takes like 300 of these items. Eventually they'll be dirt cheap because of all the bots and boosters. You're still going to want some DPS gear. I suggested maybe you wear, a frost resist chest. You can wear a frost trinket. You could do not this epic ring, but like a green ring. Maybe these legs. Did you know you can get this plate belt with 17 strength, 10 stamina, and 10 frost resist from Dire Maul Tribute Run? But this has to drop and then have the correct enchant, so that's kind of tricky. But and don't worry about this being a Tauren. This is kind of like a human warrior. Otherwise, you'd use Edge Masters. But you can see here, this guy has 94 frost resist. Then you're going to use a Juju, which will take you to 110. And then if you have a totem, you would be at 170. That's decent. You can make it work. And I'm not saying it'll be easy. You also will get the occasional frost gear to drop in the raid, but you can't depend on that. So that's just an idea. Now, what other gear could you get? Casters can craft this bright cloth gear. If we click on this, it's tailoring. So you can get these different pieces, and it's made of like rune cloth, gold bar, iron web silk, super cheap materials to make stuff with. There's the leather stuff, which is arguably a little bit expensive. These mats are not as easy to come by. You need to get the frost saber leather. Maybe it is really cheap. I honestly haven't looked. So some of those might not be too bad. For the male items, male users, warriors, etc., you can make these items. So let's see what that's just thorium bars and heart of fire. So that's super cheap to make. So that's not too bad. Now a lot of the stuff on the auction house, if you like type in of frost resistance, there'll be like 2, 3, 4, 500 gold for the BOEs. But this craftable stuff is pretty cheap. Now, something that everyone will be able to get reasonably easy, although I think you can get this week 1. Basically, you're going to talk to this guy, and he only gives you this quest once you talk to an NPC inside of Nax. He's in the Death Knight wing, the military quarter, and when you talk to him, you let him out of the cage. He gives you like a book, and then you talk to the guy here, and he will offer some quests such as this to you. It's going to take a frozen rune, essence of water, and blue sapphire, and some gold. The frozen runes is the rate limiting thing. Everyone's going to need a lot of frozen runes. And the frozen runes, they are on the walls in Nax, kind of like the equivalent of scarab coffers. And these word of thawing, it's like a piece of paper looking thing, that drops and it allows you to loot the frozen rune. So we're going to be depending on people farming trash. Like, people could make a raid to farm trash, but most likely it'll be mages. 2 mages pulling the ghouls and then resetting. And yeah, they will get us the word of thawing, and rogues will be able to stealth and grab the runes. And that'll help us get the runes we need. And you'll be able to get these 40 resistance legs. Then there's this other quest you can get. First, you have to find a rare trash drop. So make sure you pick up this quest. And then again, you need another frozen rune, but you can get this frost resist ring here. This will take you probably... You might be able to get it first week if on your first clear you're finding the frozen runes, and then you divvy up the frozen runes, and everyone has in their bag their blue sapphire, their arcane crystal, and then they hurt the Lights Hope Chapel, and they hand this in, then they go back and they fight Sapphiron with their new ring. You know, this is something that you could pass out to people on week 1. So if we look at frozen runes, they are reagents for all this different stuff. And in my experience, you get like 10 or 15 word of thawing per raid, and you know, you're going to get a number of frozen runes. Maybe like you can get, in my experience, 40 or so frozen runes per Nax lockout, and you know, that's enough gear, that's enough runes for like 2 people to get their stuff made. Rogues, you're going to do leather. Warriors, you're going to do the mail because it has more attack power. Don't make the plate. You're probably going to find that the leather is a bit cheaper to make. The cured rugged hides seem to not be that expensive. The Arcanite's going to be really expensive seemingly for attunements. Anyways, and then the cloth stuff is not that bad. You don't have moon cloth. It's just bolt of rune cloth. Everyone has the essence of water. And yeah, so the cloth is pretty cheap to make. But yeah, you're going to need exalted, right? There's that guy in Nax. The people with the professions have to talk to him to learn their recipes. And they're rep based. The beginning ones, it's just neutral. Not too much. Neutral to revered. But I think it's the chess pieces exalted. So anyways... It's going to take some time for people to get the epic stuff made. You're going to have to do this with green pieces of pupukaka. I hope this is helpful. We talked about where we get the frost resist gear from, what kind of buffs Are we going to use the Juju and the Aura or the Mark of the Wild? And what kind of damage reduction could we actually see from these different levels of gear? So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to make a lot of Naxx guides so we can get through this together. If you enjoyed the video, drop me a sub and a comment. Catch me live on my Twitch channel, Dwarf Lord TV, to connect with me or say hi to me in game on any of my characters. Dwarf Lord out.
And they say that the Dwarf Lord could save us. I'm not gonna pave here and wait. I'll hold on to the beard of the Dwarf Lord. Watch as we heroic leap away.